let's talk about one of my favorite topics, astrology, and how I like to use astrology in my witchcraft practice. Hi, lovely witch. My name is Rosa. I'm the Divine Feminine Witch, and I help witches feel empowered through working with the goddess. Today, we're going to be talking about astrology. I absolutely love astrology. I think one of the first witchy things that I did was working with the moon phases. And before even then, I was really into astrology, but I only knew my sun sign and everybody else's sun signs, and I would remember people's sun signs, and I only knew them based off of that. But there is so much more revolving astrology and how beneficial it is to dive into astrology and use it in your witchcraft practice. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be going over how to slowly dive into astrology, especially if you're a beginner to it, and how I like to incorporate it in my practice. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. So let's get into it. Let's start with the basics of astrology. What is it and how can it benefit you? Astrology, first and foremost, is not something that is supposed to tell you who you are. It's more of something that's supposed to give you reflection and guidance on how you can improve in your life. And I don't want to necessarily say navigate life, because I don't think that you should use astrology as like a rule book or guidelines to when it's okay to do this and when it's not okay to do this. Take, for example, the phrase as above, so below, as within, so without. This is a very common phrase in a lot of occultist, occultism in a lot of occultist practices. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze right now. Okay, you know what I mean, hopefully. Anyways, this is a very common phrase, and what it means is that everything here on earth is reflected up in the sky. Everything in the microcosm is reflected in the macrocosm, and vice versa. Everything in your internal world is projected out into the outer world, and vice versa. So I like to look at astrology in that sense. It's supposed to help highlight things and reflect things. It's supposed to help you bring focus to certain aspects of your life. It can help you notice patterns and characteristic traits. And we're talking about astrology. We're not talking about pop astrology, okay? Because what pop astrology is to me, the popular, is when people say, oh, Geminis are two-faced, Scorpios are so secretive, and Aries is a hothead. Yes and no, okay? This is why I have an issue with pop astrology, is because they just point out some characteristic that can be negative, but that doesn't mean that that is the characteristic of that sign. And when they're talking about that, they're only talking about the sun sign, the ego. There is so much more to you and your birth chart. So whenever you see memes and things on social media talking about pop astrology and generalizing people to a certain type of characteristic, take it very lightheartedly. Don't take it seriously. There's so much more nuance to what they are talking about. So you have your birth chart, and that shows who you are. It may show areas in life where you are being challenged and areas in life where you have gifts, where you have talents. But it's not a definitive thing, because you are ever evolving and your sign is ever evolving. The aspects in your chart could mean one thing at one point in your life, and as you grow and develop, it could mean a completely different thing. And your birth chart can actually also highlight what types of magic you may prefer to use or work with, or what naturally you work with the best. We'll get more into that a little later on when I mention one of my favorite books, by the way. Aside from your birth chart, astrology is also current astrological aspects. The moon, the sun, the planets are always moving around in the sky, and they all have different energies. And so when they move around and they get close together, or they go in complete opposite sides of each other, this affects the energy, the collective energy. And so the energy that different aspects bring can be used in your magical workings. So if you are very new to astrology and you want to start working with the aspects and you want to know what's the easiest way to get into it, I'm going to tell you exactly how I started and how I started developing my knowledge for astrology, because it's a very complex topic. There's so much that goes into it. What I recommend is starting with just the moon. In witchcraft, we incorporate the phases of the moon a lot. Not everybody does, but I feel like for the most part, we always dive into lunar magic. The new moon for new beginnings, the full moon for reflection and releasing, waning for releasing, waxing for growing. I kind of said that a little out of order. But yeah, I do have a video that goes a little more into lunar magic if you want to learn about that. I also have a couple blog posts on the lunar phases, working with them, and moon water and spells around each phase. Like I said, that is where I started my witchy practice. I literally just started working with the phases of the moon. So I would track in my calendar, and I actually, now that I remember, I got this planner from Magic of Eye. That is what it's called. It's a little bit on the pricier side for a planner, but in my opinion, it's really worth it, especially if you want to start working with the phases of the moon and astrology in general. This has a little chart where you can draw in your birth chart. It has a brief explanation of the different elements, the different signs, the mythology behind each sign. I really love to read the mythology of each sign every time we enter a new sign. There's important aspects of the year are listed on there. So I know we're in July, but maybe I'll link it in the description if you want to check it out. Maybe you can save it for the next year. They also give you a little space to write your intentions for the new moon and your reflections for the full moon. And it kind of gives you a brief little list of intentions that are correlated with each new moon and full moon. It's a really beautiful planner. But yeah, keeping track of the moon, the phases of the moon, will help you figure out when's the best time to try and do a specific type of spell. And then you can add a little bit more to it by including the energy of the zodiac sign that the moon falls under. So for example, when we enter a new zodiac sign, like right now we are in Cancer, at the very beginning of this Cancer season, we had a new moon. The new moon would have been in Cancer, and then the full moon would have been in the sign that is opposite of Cancer in the astrological yearly chart. I'm like, what's the right word here? Which was Capricorn. And so our next new moon will be in Leo season. That's when I am recording this video. I don't know when I'm actually going to be uploading it, so hopefully that still makes sense then. And so when you add the element of the astrological sign that the moon is under, then you not only have the energy of the moon, which is associated with the goddess, the intuition, the divine feminine, your inner world, your emotions. Now you're also combining that energy with the energy of the astrological sign. For example, Capricorn is very much a leader role. They are a cardinal sign, and they are go-getters. They're really like work oriented, not necessarily the person, but the sign itself. And I'll explain a little bit more of that once we're talking about birth charts. And so adding the astrological sign into the phase of the moon can start getting you more into understanding what each sign is like. Once you familiarize yourself with the lunar phases, I think that's when you should start looking at the energies of all the planets. That includes the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus. Hopefully, I didn't miss one. Each planet is associated with different intentions, different energies, and each day is ruled by different planets. So, what you could do is write in your calendar what planet is ruling each day, and that eventually you'll memorize it. I memorized that pretty quickly. I mean, there's only 7 days in the week, so it's pretty easy. Also, they kind of match the name of the days for the most part. Monday, Mun, Moon, Saturday, Saturn, Saturn day. Learning which planet rules over each day can help you incorporate more of astrology into your spell work. For example, since Saturday is ruled by Saturn, Saturn energy is best to work with on Saturday. And so that includes justice work, anything revolving legal matters, and even anything revolving career. Jupiter rules over Thursdays, and so on Thursdays, you could do things revolving good luck and prosperity and abundance. On top of daily rulers, there is also hourly rulers. You can look this up. Google has it pretty accurate. This planner I mentioned also has it in there. This I feel is a little bit extra. I don't tend to do it, but if you want to add even more energy to your specific spell, say you want to do a spell revolving your relationship with money. You want to have a healthier, more positive relationship with money. You could do that on Thursday, since Jupiter is kind of associated with money and finances and success. But you could also do that on Friday, which is associated with Venus, the planet of love and compassion and your health and your emotional health specifically. And you could do it on the hours that are ruled by Jupiter. So on Friday to add that Venus element, but then during the hours of Jupiter to add that Jupiter element. So you can have a little combination there. I don't go that excess, but you could. That's always an idea. Or if you want double the energy of good luck, then do it on Thursday because that's Jupiter day, right? And then do it on the hour of Jupiter. Double Jupiter energy. Aside from intentions, each planet is associated with different chakras, different crystals, herbs. They're associated with different elements and different deities as well. If you want more help on getting familiar with different correspondences, I highly recommend the Book of Correspondences, the complete Book of Correspondences. It's so heavy. It's really thick. This dives into not only intentions, but then also so many different things, including astrology, all the planets, the chakras, the zodiac signs specifically, runes, colors, everything. It's very organized. I don't say I 100% agree with everything that it says, but as you get more knowledgeable and as you learn to trust your intuition, you'll learn more what's best for you. So once you've got yourself familiarized with the different moon phases and the planets and the intentions and days associated with each, then I would start diving into your birth chart. That's what's going to help you not only more easily focus and absorb information because it's about you, but it'll help you start understanding different aspects. Aspects basically means the connection that planets have to each other. For example, if you have two planets that are just a few degrees away from each other in a sign, those planets are conjunct. Then there's a trine, a sextile, a square. These are all aspects, and they mean that these planets are a certain amount of degrees away from each other. I don't want to give you too much right now on exactly what each each means because I don't want you to get lost. It's a lot of information, like I said. So yeah, learning your own birth chart will help you understand more about aspects, but you don't want to start there. You want to start with where each planet is in your birth chart and where it is as far as what sign it falls under and what house it falls under. Now, when it comes to astrology, something that a lot of people don't know and what I didn't know when I first started is that even in Western astrology, there are different systems. Whole sign and Placidus. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I'm going to say Placidus. Those are two different systems. Whole sign means that one sign takes up the entire house. Okay, there are 12 different houses, there are 12 different signs. This is actually the older system. It comes from Hellenistic time period, and it basically means that all the houses are equally divided in your chart. Placidus houses, on the other hand, are calculated based on the time it takes a planet to rise and culminate, meaning that the houses are gonna be different sizes from each other. I'm trying to figure out how I can explain that to you. If I can, I'm going to pop up somewhere two different charts to give you an example of what whole sign houses looks like and what Placidus houses looks like. I highly encourage you to look at your chart in both and see what you personally feel you associate with more. When I first started learning about this, I use the astrology app Chani. I highly recommend it. I did get the 7-day trial to look at what it gives you as far as a description of each of your houses, each of your planets in each house, and they use the whole sign house system. So that can give you an idea what that looks like for you in your birth chart. But then I also recently found another app called Starcrossed. The purpose of that one is actually to help you find your soulmate, just so you know. I think it's a really cool idea. I love the way that she created that app. And that one, you don't actually have to pay to see the description of your birth chart. You do if you want to look at your soulmate's birth chart. But for that one, they use the Placidus house system. And so that will give you an idea of what your birth chart looks like on that one. My birth chart in both systems looks slightly different, but I feel I resonate more with the Placidus house system. Astroseek.com, that's a website where I like to look at birth charts, including everybody else's that I know that's willing to give me their birth chart. That one won't necessarily tell you what your birth chart means. It won't dive into anything about it, but it will give you an accurate visual of your birth chart. But it is under Placidus house system unless you decide to change it. You can change it on there. The cool thing I like about AstroSeek is that it will give you an option to look at what your dominant element is and what your dominant planet is. That might give you an idea of what types of magic work best for you. My dominant planet is Earth, which makes sense because I love to use a lot of herbs in my workings. No matter what kind of workings I use, I love to just incorporate as many herbs as possible. I also love working with crystals. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more about reading your own birth chart. It's going to take some time. It's taken me a long time to really understand my birth chart. So let's talk about how I like to incorporate astrology into my spell work. I've kind of already told you a little bit of like how you can use it, but I feel like me telling you how I like to use it will give you a little bit better of an understanding. So I'm an Aries rising, which means I'm ruled by Mars, and Mars is all about fire and passion and just that go-getter energy, and it's also associated with candle magic, and that's one of the reasons why candle magic is one of my absolute favorites. I also love to look at the flames and kind of divinate with the flame and read the flame energy, if that makes sense. If you know anything about candle reading, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, I could do a video on that if you'd like. But my dominant element in my chart overall is earth. And so that's also why I love to incorporate different herbs into my magic. Like I'll try and incorporate as many herbs as I can into a spell working. And it doesn't matter if it's candle magic or any other kind of magic, I will incorporate herbs. It's also why I feel it comes very naturally for me to do grounding meditations. I can do that in about 5 minutes every morning. I do a grounding meditation. For some people, it's harder to ground, and you have to actually go outside and touch grass in order to be able to ground your energy. For me, it literally just takes a quick little 5-minute meditation. I'm also a Gemini sign, which is associated with Mercury, writing, communication, and speaking. These are all things associated with Mercury and Gemini. My Mercury sign is also in Cancer, which means that the way I express my Mercury is very much through my emotions. I love to express a lot of emotion into my writing. And I think because of that combination is why I love to journal. I love to journal for shadow work and for new moon intentions and for full moon release and reflection sessions. And so writing is a big part of my spell work. In the Placidus house system, my Venus and moon are conjunct in the first house, which is the house of self. And so that's why I feel like working with Venusian energy is something that I've been called to just naturally, like before I even learned what Venusian energy was. And that might also be the reason why I was called to work with a Venusian goddess. And my Black Moon Lilith is in the 12th house, which is of the subconscious. And that's both in the whole house system and the Placidus house system, which I found really fascinating. But it is in the 12th house in Pisces, which is also about the subconscious and the inner mind, which is also connected to your intuition and insight and your psychic abilities, which is why I feel like I tend to have a lot of deja vu. I also find it very easy to do dream work. I also am clairaudient, and so I feel like that's also connected to that. Your Black Moon Lilith can also show you what areas of life you need to do shadow work on in order to tap into that Lilithian energy within you, that dark feminine energy within you. So yeah, that is how I like to use astrology in my practice, as well as using the phases of the moon and scheduling my spell workings and my spells that I offer for clients based on the different planetary alignments. Hopefully that gives you an understanding of how you can incorporate astrology into your spell workings. It takes time. Astrology is a very intense subject. There is so much that goes into it. I feel like I've only covered like the surface level of what astrology is or how to dive into it. And then there's all of this below the sea knowledge that you still need to dive into. If you want to know more of astrology, if you want to feel more like an astrologer, there isn't necessarily a course you take. You just start learning it. And you just start learning it by getting astrology apps, by following astrologers on social media, by watching YouTube like this, just slowly start getting yourself into it. You also want to dive into books. My favorite book is The Inner Sky by Stephen Forrest. This is a pretty old book and it's very popular. A lot of astrologers have this book. I like the way that he dives into things. It makes it very easily digestible, I feel. So I highly recommend this book. All right, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with somebody you think might benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching and have a blessed day, lovely witch.